What's up? It is Sam here, and I have an amazing video for you today. We are going to talk about Julian Castro and how he just announced that he was dropping out of the Democratic nomination race, and how we've actually been predicting this for a while now with our power rankings and the different factors that go into our power rankings. So, with that being said, what's good? If this is your first time here, my name is Sam, and for those of you who are returning, it is good to freaking see you. Let's get into it. Happy New Year to everybody. Julian Castro just dropped out. As you can see, this is from 4 minutes ago. This is from Business Insider. This is from Washington Post, New York Times. New York Times was 4 hours ago, so they were on top of their shit. It's over on Twitter from 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago from Fox News, MSNBC 3 hours ago. So this pretty much just literally happened. And we go over to Twitter, by the way. You can check out my link in the description down below. The number one thing trending in the United States right now is Castro, right? Julian Castro. So that was kind of interesting, and it made me think about the power rankings we do. So I have these power rankings where we rate the Democratic candidates that are running for president, and we do it based upon the data, not on like somebody's opinion of something, or like, hey, you won because you said that witty thing. Like, let's see what like America actually thinks. So I want to run through what the factors are in the power rankings and how if you check out the old videos, link in, like you can go to the channel here and check it out, but we've said that Julian is probably going to be the next person to drop out, possibly like Amy Klobuchar or Cory Booker, but probably not, right? So now Julian's out of the picture. So who do we think is going to drop out next now that Julian's gone, right? So we're going to take a look at both of those things as we work through our power rankings and what they are. So Julian Castro, this is our Google search volume. So we essentially rank the candidates based upon the search volume for their name. Makes sense, right? Because you have all the people in the U.S. searching for candidates. So, and we have the number one site in the world, and we get to see what they're actually interested in because they're fucking searching for it instead of having a phone call from a polling institution being like, hey, who would you vote for? Like, you want the most authentic form of the data as possible. I think hopefully you can see that, but the closer you can get to the source of the information, the clearer the imagery is. Like, instead of having a telephone, a game where you whisper into this person's ear and then they talk into this person's ear and you keep going around in a circle, instead of doing that telephone, right, as the media portrays it to the world, and it goes through 18 different steps, what if it was just you and you could actually see the data yourself? Well, that's what we're doing here. And we see that Julian Castro has been the last for a while. But who could be next? So I have a theory that is, if I was going to guess right now, based upon the information that I have, I don't really follow what's going on in with what anybody says, what these candidates say or anything. So I would say that Amy has been doing worse across the board than Cory Booker. These two are obviously my top two choices. Let's see. I'd say Tom Steyer's no, because he's got more money. Bloomberg just entered, so no. Like all the other top 5 to 6 candidates there, like Pete Andrew, Bernie, Joe, Elizabeth, and Tulsi, those guys I see staying in for a little bit, unless unforeseen things happen, like they don't know how to manage the relationships and the teams around them, and that explodes and it just causes them too much stress, so they drop out, right? Or they run out of money, right? But that could also be the effect of like not knowing how to be a fucking leader. Because you don't know how to manage money in an effective way, right? So the two people that I see potentially is Amy and Cory. Amy's traditionally been ranked worse, but I don't know if this boost, because she made the last debate and Cory didn't. So does she think, like, in her mind that she's like, oh, I'm building all this steam because she made the debate stage? I don't know what's going on in their camp, but when you look at people's actual interest of like search volume, Cory's been doing Booker. Cory's been doing Booker. Yeah, he's been doing him right. but he has been doing better. So he's been losing ground recently as Ami's been gaining ground. So that's why I think it could possibly be Cory Booker who drops out next. This next like news cycle, as people are reporting their fundraising numbers, is going to be super interesting to watch how that affects the numbers. And I think we could have another person drop out before the next debate potentially. The next category in here is our YouTube search volume. Same exact thing as Google, except for instead of using the Google searches, we use the YouTube searches. Here again, he's just not doing super well. And the same thing that I said for Cory and Amy kind of hold up across the board. We'll touch on anything interesting as we come across, but we're going to come across a little bit quicker. We use their website ranking too, and here again, Cory's just Julian is just not super great. He's doing better than Amy in this one here, but in the last 2 weeks here. They're the two rankings that we've done in the month of December. If you guys want to check out any of these rankings, go back to the channel on the way down there, press that subscribe button. But he just hasn't been doing well. And in multiple of these videos, I was like, hey, bro, it's probably the next person who's going to drop out. Here, this is the Facebook ranking based upon the growth rate and the number of likes on Facebook in terms of like on the page, but also how many people are talking about them. So we do a ranking on that. Not super good over there. On Twitter, I think this is his highest that he has at all, is on Twitter. And it's much more recent. So in the last 45 days or so, he's gained a little bit of momentum here. And he is up in the top 5 on the Twitter rankings. So Twitter rankings they take into more consideration of like what the person is doing. So that's why he's ranking higher, because one of the factors that we use in our Twitter ranking is how much work somebody's actually putting in, because in the long run, in the very macro view, right, if you run out of funds or you just can't get as much momentum in terms of like the amplification effect of having other people talk about you, because you have this very, very long field of candidates that are all vying for attention. If you just work harder and you have a long enough time horizon, you could just win. And that was his strategy, it looked like, on Twitter, because we would measure the number of tweets that each candidate would do per month, and also like the growth rate in terms of the new followers on their Twitter account, and the total number of followers, but also the growth rate in those numbers. And Julian was putting out a lot of more work, right? Like if you go into a community and you perpetually like interact with that the community involved, whether like you live in a small city and you just go be part of the community, you're gonna know more people, right? Like it just makes sense. If you go into the city and whatever you're involved in, and you talk to more people and you interact with more people, you're gonna be more involved with the city and understand more what's going on and talk to more people. Same exact thing happens, but it's the digital world that not a lot of people understand that. So if you spend more time on Twitter interacting with people, that's going to help you in the physical world. It's going to help in every other, in anything else you're trying to accomplish where you're trying to gain attention. And he was doing a good job on there to be able to get in the top. This is where Cory actually loses to Amy, is on Twitter. But this, if we take a look at this, this could be interesting to watch. This is actually the next one that I'm going to be doing after this video, so don't forget to press that subscribe button and the bell notification. But I'm doing the research for this Twitter ranking video today, which is January 2nd, 2020. I said 2020. So I'm going to be, that was right after the debate, or like a couple weeks after the debate. So now I'm curious to know if Amy has lost that momentum, or what's happening with Cory on this one here too, because Cory's traditionally not done well on Twitter. But then again, remember, if you don't fucking try, you're not going to do well. That's how you can think about it. It's not like he's trying and he's not succeeding. Like if you don't fucking do anything, you're not going to win. Right? Then we have the YouTube channel. He'd actually been gaining ground on this one. He went from 12th to 9th over the past, like since the end of October until mid-December. So he was gaining a little bit of ground. But remember, like the only people who are actually ever fucking talked about are the top 5 people. The vast majority of time from like the traditional media's view of the world. On Instagram, again, very bottom of the list. In terms of awareness, so we measure like hashtag usage on different platforms and the number of views on YouTube channels associated with the candidates' names and stuff in a 24-hour period. And he was just not relevant. Not saying that he doesn't have valuable information that he's spewing or whatever, but like it's not resonating with people. He's not getting his message out. Either he's not good enough or he's not getting his message out. Right? One of those two things is happening, and people like to think that it's not the message, but sometimes you're just not good enough. I don't know, you know. So this is the power ranking. So now we went through all of those factors, right? And then we take an average across all of those to see who's actually number one. And interestingly, if you look, and this is the first time I'm doing this type of analysis, but if you take a look at the average, the 2 rating average for Julian, and we've got that listed here at the bottom. And it's, all this is these two, the first 2 ratings divided by 2. It's just the average of those, and then we bring it forward, so we do the same thing, right? It's if you guys do any data analysis or anything, it's just an interesting way to take a look at the data to understand what's happening. And we see that his average score has been decreasing over time. So again, just one more indicator that's pointing us in a different direction. So let's take a look at what's going on with Amy and Cory, because this is the most comprehensive view. I'd love to know what you guys' thoughts are down below in the comment section. If you use the hashtag Stolt, then we would get into the Q&A section. We can actually talk about your feedback in the comments. Okay, so let's look at Amy really quick. So over the last 3, well, if we look at the entire time period, it's basically like she's had a pyramid, right? She started at 9th and then went up and then came back down. So it's not super valuable to necessarily, you can't 100% say that there's a trend, but if you look at half of the time period over the last, 2 months roughly, which is the most important information, right? The most relevant information is the stuff that's most people are interested in right now, what they're actually paying attention to, right? And we can see that she has been gaining ground, but then so has Cory Booker. And if you look at the net between these two, they're almost about the same. So if we had to pick somebody, if we had to pick one of these 2 people, damn, I don't know who it would be, because I really have this would just strictly be based upon the data, because I have no fucking clue what's going on in their camp, or anything like that. So, if I had to guess, so basically it's just going to be a guess. I'm going to say Cory. We'll say Cory Booker. Maybe, and the thinking behind that is that maybe with Amy being in the last debate, she's able to utilize that to catapult herself into the mainstream media talking about her more, because she is a lady up there, and the only other person that like anybody fucking wants to talk about is Elizabeth Warren. So maybe they bring her in to just add a little bit of diversity, instead of bringing Tulsi in, because they don't, you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm not sure to see how that will catapult it, but I don't see the same opportunity for Cory Booker. I don't see Cory Booker having the leverage at this moment in time that Amy has, and that's why, like, if they're both kind of like at bottom of the barrel, I would expect potentially, if they're intelligent and know what the fuck they're doing and they want to actually succeed, that they could utilize them in the last debate to gain some more leverage and awareness, to help, you know what I mean, at least beat Cory Booker. Maybe we'll see if Amy can do that or whatever, or see how long they can stay in for the. I'd like to know what your thoughts are down below. Use the hashtag Stolt and we can get into the comment section. So this is my YouTube analytics, and I just search right here for hashtag Stolt. So this is anybody who's left a comment that says hashtag Stolt in it. The first one is from Cloudy Commentary. I love the name Cloudy, and appreciate you checking me out on Twitter. What's good, man? I love the data. It's super interesting. Crystal, hey, I haven't seen you in a little while. I don't think I've done one of these in the back of a video for a bit. So, anyways, Yang is from New York. I did not know that. She was answering one of my questions because I didn't know Andrew Yang was from New York. I think a lot of people assume he lives in California. I actually did assume he lived in California. I did not know that because he talks about his friends in Silicon Valley and spends a decent amount of time campaigning there. Okay, this is super interesting. It's probably helpful for anybody who is watching this because that's what I believed. I did not know he was from New York, and I thought he did live in California. No idea, I did have no data points to look at it. It was just, the little bits here and there. If somebody was to ask, I would say, I don't know, probably California. So it is interesting, and I appreciate that, and I think anybody else who was watching who thought similarly might find that valuable there. Crystal, again, with the comments. Thank you. Appreciate it. Happy New Year's. The Bernie people, I don't think anything official, though, have started attacking Yang a lot since the last week of December. Seems to me they have finally realized who the threat is. Interesting. Why do you say that the Bernie people are attacking the Yang in like the back, you know what I mean, in like the shadows a little bit, not so much in the public yet? I don't know. I do see Bernie losing steam. So if people are doing the same thing and they're losing steam and they just don't, and they're just not good enough, right? I could see people being defensive, right? Potentially. So because what I'm saying is based on the data, and if what you're saying is what you're seeing out in the field, it could be, right? Because I've seen Bernie losing ground. So if he's losing ground and the team is feeling that they're losing momentum, because we can see it in the data, that means that if there's less people searching for somebody, then there's a little on average, less people showing up at these fucking events or what have you. There's one less person per day coming up and saying, hey, can I get a selfie? So that's kind of interesting that you point that out, because the data kind of points in that direction. I mean, at least if you think about the psychological portion of like putting a team under stress that they're losing momentum, and then people get defensive and then they start lashing out potentially at other campaigns. One more question here from Jeremy. What's good, Jeremy Adams? You should go through and pick your favorite parts of this interview and just release as piecemeal with an introduction from you. Jeremy, you are fucking awesome. So I was already thinking about that, and I do have to do that. This is in reference to my Paget interview, where it's about an hour and a half long, so that's probably a lot for a lot of people to watch, but I love it, Jeremy. It's gold. I do have to do that. I definitely need to do that. Then link back to the full interview, blah, blah, blah. I haven't seen... I think that what you're talking about in the second half of this comment, where he references like if you upload a second video that's the same as somebody else's video, that the SEO doesn't perform as well with the YouTube algorithm. What does help the YouTube algorithm is if you smash that like button. But I'm serious about that. It does help the YouTube algorithm, so it wasn't just a shellfish thing there. But I don't do this that often, but I think that it's also, I think that bringing it over, even if it's the same on somebody else's channel, and I just take the interview and re-upload it, I think is still valuable to a lot of the audience at this point. I do plan on continuing to grow and get better with what I'm doing online 100%. It's been about 3 weeks since I haven't had a job and I'm doing this type of stuff full time. So the earnings numbers for December for me, basically how much money I made in December versus how much I made in November, I'm going to be putting out as soon as I have all the data, probably in the next couple of days. So if you want to see how much money I made like online to go along with this, because part of what I'm doing in order to be able to make more money online, I mean, you can think of like attention as currency, right? So if you know how to get attention, you can use that to achieve whatever you want, whether it's money or to meet people or whatever the case is. So I'm curious to see how this plays out if as time goes on. Anyways, I appreciate you guys. If you guys have any thoughts, leave them down below. Happy freaking New Year's.